you cannot rap better than this verse because of how he sets it up and then elaborates. Now, those of you have not heard my music, you mentioned me I've alluded to it a couple times, and I've had a hiatus just because I had to get some other life shit on track. But one of the biggest challenges for me when I'm freestyling or writing is actually like starting off a verse. I never really know how to start it. Almost like Nas, I don't even know how to start this shit, right? And so the first 4 bars of this verse, yo, I'm sure everybody out listening agree that everything you see ain't really how it be. A lot of jokers running in place, chasing the style, but a lot going on beneath the empty smile. Now, to me, this is so simple, and it sets the stage so perfectly in a welcoming, benign way that lets you know that something dark and ominous is going on within the entire structure of the song, Thieves in the Night, the hook, etc. You got to listen to the whole song. We're focusing on just this verse. But like many verses start off with shock value or big booming bravado to really capture your attention. Fuck the police, coming straight from the underground, right? Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Hove. A millionaire. I'm a young money millionaire, tougher than Nigerian hair. I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side, right? And I bomb atomically, Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses, right? There are a lot of geniuses that we have been able to observe over the 50-year period of this. But this is just so like light touch, strong gripped in terms of the delivery. It's like, hey, welcome to my world. I'm going to tell you that everything that you're looking at is not actually what it is. Whoa. That creates a point of intrigue. So it's like, it raises the question, like, what is actually wrong? You know what I mean? So now you're in. And what's actually going on beneath this empty smile? He continues talking about how America is the land of opportunity, mirages and camouflages, right? These sensory details that connect different, of the 5 senses that most people would live day to day in. Like you see something, but it's not actually there. That's a mirage. Or you see something, but you're actually not seeing all the hidden details under it. That's what it means to be camouflaged, right? That's why combat veterans and army fatigues exist, so you can blend in with your surroundings to do harm, to do damage, right? To whoever your enemy is. So, and also he immediately follows that line up with the James Brown reference, talking loud, but saying nothing. So he's weaving in some of this education and upbringing that he had, because James Brown is on the short list of personal greatest artists of all time. And he is one of the undoubtedly greatest artists in the history of English, is how I'll frame it. Another bar that stands out, reflections rarely seen across the surface of the looking glass. I think this is something that you might have spoken to earlier a little bit, David, but then a little bit later in the verse, you're looking gassed up with your designer shades on. The stars shine bright, but the light rarely stays on. That's something you said a little bit earlier as well, David. This motif that your vision is being impaired, and it connects to the first bar, like things are not what they seem. And I'm going to carry this motif of vision not aligning with what your brain is telling you, and there is a disconnect by design to make sure that you are a cog in this system that is supposed to produce and churn a survivalist, a lottery mentality, a 1 in a million chance. And it's supposed to be an experience for Black Americans that live in the extremes. You either have or you have not. We are either niggas or kings. We are either bitches or queens, right? There is no in between. If you exist in these extremes, it becomes really easy to splinter your community and splinter the people who you're supposed to be standing in unison in. And that is what this industry perpetuates. And that is what this art form that we built as young Black American men of the 80s and 90s have built, and now is being infested by the consumerism and the marketing and the money-making potential that this art form has. So the disconnection of senses presented through expanded ideas and dichotomy, stars, but not light, designer shades, but the light is not on, shallow promises and big rewards designed to create slaves and addicts who submit due to the circumstances of their socioeconomic or environmental upbringing. These are all mechanisms to pull you in and distort your vision. So you might think you're doing really well, but really you're more just playing into what the machine has designed for you. I hate to categorize it broadly as the machine, but that's how we're going to call it for now. We're just going to pretend we're all red pilled as fuck and call it the Matrix, right? And what I mentioned earlier about it being sinister, it's not just happening to you. Somebody is doing this to you. There are structures doing this to you. Could be the police force, which is obviously rooted in slave catchers. That was the original quote unquote police force, right? It could be the banking industry not giving black folks housing loans and the GI Bill and all that kind of stuff. It could be redlining to make sure wealth is often separated amongst certain communities. It could be job applications, could be cutting DEI hiring, which affects white women more than anything in this country, right? Positively. And things of the like, right? But these are things being done to a population or various populations of people of color or different religions. You mentioned Screaming Brand New, but they just sanitized the old shit. These blessings, these mechanisms, these tactics are just recoded with a fresh coat of paint. And I hate to plug my own writing here because I'm not quite the caliber of lyricist Mos Def is yet. But David, that song I talked to that I'm working on called Cup of Sugar, where I talked about there's a fresh coat of paint on the chitlin circuit, right? Like, yeah, okay, I kind of sound like him because he's obviously really influential like me, but the idea is still pertinent and obviously influential and still carrying on today. And another line that stands out, most mentions Jedi mind tricks, born of the extremes, right? We're either bitches or kings, or niggas or queens. And it goes back to what I talked about a little bit earlier, that you either have or you don't, right? And the mind is clouded from the vision, as I mentioned before. And that actually reminds me of like, these are not the droids you are looking for. Whoever Obi-Wan Kenobi was talking to in the movie, the guy is literally looking at the droids. And Obi-Wan is going, these are not the droids you're looking for. Like the thin-veiled Jedi mind trick that can pervert your vision and make you lose your sense of clarity, right? Which is one of the most devious tactics of all. That's not what you think. I know you know what that is, but that's not that. And I'm just going to keep bludgeoning you over the head with it until you kind of submit, right?
Get gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The length of black life is treated with short worth, but the immediate, which you already highlighted, but the immediate line immediately after that is get yours first, right? It's all fleeting and everybody out there is against you. So do whatever you can to get yours. It's like Remember the Titans, where Julius, speaking to Gary Bertier, is like, you talking about a team? What team? No, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get mine, right? Because this is the environment that has been created. It causes mass separation, which creates individualism, which is basically how you destroy any sort of momentum or positive movement in any country, in any world ever, is you splinter the unification. But the country has introduced these mechanisms, whether it's in entertainment or housing or banking or whatever it is, to create this kind of diasporic effect. It's the same thing as saying, I'm not black, I'm OJ, when OJ Simpson said that. It's like, I mean, you're clearly born in the skin you're born into. There's no way to separate it, but he will do anything he could at the time to get his and create that separation, right? You already mentioned this line, but we're not strong, only aggressive because the power is misdirected. I'm aware of these forces. This is Moses' commentary, at least in my interpretation. I'm aware of these forces. We've been beaten into the system. We don't even own our own masters, as you highlighted before. And we are aware of these constant pressures that exist, but we're supposed to celebrate that 1 in 100,000 that make it, and that is supposed to be, that lottery mentality is supposed to be good enough and create enough hope, right? You mentioned chasing death to call ourselves brave. What are we actually doing this for? We're throwing ourselves away for something that doesn't actually care about us. And that actually wraps up the verse. Again, I'm jumping from line to line here. Trying not to speak too long, but there's a lot to say in a 2.5-minute verse. I'm trying to live life in the sight of God's legacy. I've actually abandoned these worldly desires and worldly pursuits to make sure that I am right with my consciousness. Consciousness is God, and I have to rely on divine purpose in this useless fight until there is enough collective activity and motion to create real institutional change, get wealth in the places that it should be, get education in the places that it should be. And that is what this industry is a microcosm of, the broader forces inflicted on people who look like me, a young Mos Def, rapping perfectly on Thieves in the Night on Black Star, that classic album. This is why you can't rap better than this verse. So that's me going on for like 4 or 5 minutes, wrapping up doing what I usually do when we're not recording. But that to me is why you can't rap better than this verse, man. Like it's depth, it's nuance, It's heavy, it's violent, but it's slick and it's smooth and it's digestible and it's easy to pick up something new every time you listen to it or focus on a portion of the verse that you didn't necessarily focus on before. And that's why he was a master so early, man.